Good evening and welcome to Inside City Hall for Monday, August 25th, 2025. I'm Bobby Kuza in for Errol Lewis. President Donald Trump is taking aim at cashless bail laws across the country, warning in a new executive order that his administration could withhold federal funding for communities, including New York. The move is being met with pushback from New York's top leaders and sparking reaction on the campaign trail for mayor. Kevin Frey in our Washington, D.C. bureau joins me now with tonight's top story. Good evening, Kevin.
Hey, good evening, Bobby. This has really been a target for Republicans, particularly in New York, for quite some time. It has been really, it has embroiled Democrats in recent elections as well, and now President Trump is taking aim at the issue from the Oval Office.
President Donald Trump threatening to withhold federal dollars from communities that offer cashless bail. Signing a new executive order Monday, he argued such policies are a threat to public safety.
Somebody kills somebody, they go in, don't worry about it, no cash, come back in a couple of months, we'll give you a trial. You never see the person again.
In a press release, the White House put New York front and center, highlighting a handful of stories where suspects in New York were released without bail and were subsequently accused of committing another crime. Since going into effect in New York in 2020, bail reform has been a flashpoint in state politics. The policy aimed to address income disparities in the criminal justice system by eliminating bail for lower-level crimes while still allowing it for more violent offenses, including, despite the president's suggestion, murder. Republicans attacked the policy, the political backlash attributed to helping them secure wins in several elections since. However, an analysis by the Brennan Center says there's little evidence there's any connection between bail reforms and crime rates.
It seems very clear that when we've seen crime trends increase or decrease on the national level, there's something else going on. It's not about changes to bail reform in a single state or even a handful of states.
On the campaign trail for New York City Mayor, Democratic nominee Zohran Mamdani, a proponent of the bail reforms, railed against the president's executive order.
The best way to fight Donald Trump is to do exactly that. It's to fight him. It's not to cower, it's not to collaborate, it's not to call him.
Mayor Eric Adams, who has repeatedly leaned on Albany to update the bail reforms, used the president's order as an opportunity to criticize Andrew Cuomo, who, as governor, signed the initial 2019 law.
Our revolving door system of dealing with violent offenders must be addressed. I think the former governor made a terrible mistake with how they did bail reform.
A spokesperson for Cuomo, meanwhile, pushed back, writing in part, quote, "As New York has cash bail for violent offenses and repeat offender arrests have been decreasing, it's clear that the drafters of this executive order don't know the facts about New York's law."
Adding one more voice here to the mix of things, Governor Kathy Hochul, through a spokesperson, also argued that Trump does not seem to understand New York's law. Her statement saying, in part, quote, "New York has not eliminated cash bail. His reckless threat to withhold federal funds would not only undercut law enforcement and make our communities less safe." The fact is, Governor Hochul changed New York's bail laws so violent offenders are held accountable, and as a result, rearrests are down. Bobby?
So, Kevin, obviously you have this dynamic here where Mayor Adams has allied himself with Donald Trump to some degree. So the question now is, will the mayor push back if, in fact, President Trump follows through on this pledge? Do we have any sense for how that dynamic might play out?
Yeah, I mean, that is really kind of the underlying question here, is that because, among other things, Trump and Adams are accused of essentially a quid pro quo when it comes to the charges being dropped against him earlier this year, there is kind of this odd dynamic between the mayor and the president. And we did see in a subsequent statement today, again, the mayor emphasizing his work to try to update and modify the bail reforms from several years ago, going to Albany, leaning on Albany to update those. And so there does seem to be at least some area where perhaps the president and the mayor could be in lockstep there.
Kevin Frey in our Washington, D.C. bureau, thank you so much for that report. Also tonight, in the wake of last week's indictments against his associates, Mayor Adams looked to move on today, refusing to answer questions about whether his former top aide, Ingrid Lewis-Martin, is still a volunteer on his re-election campaign. Our Courtney Gross was with the mayor today, and she joins me now with more. Good evening, Courtney.
Good evening, Bobby. We already knew that Mayor Eric Adams had an uphill climb when it came to his re-election prospects, and obviously those multiple indictments last week isn't going to help anything, which is why he didn't want to talk about it.
On topic, on topic, on topic. On topic.
The mayor at a campaign rally on Monday outside of City Hall, where he was avoiding questions about his former top aide. He ended his press conference moments later.
Wait a minute. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for coming out.
Ingrid Lewis-Martin was charged in 4 separate bribery schemes last week by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Up until December, Lewis-Martin had been the mayor's chief advisor, by his side for decades. On Friday, the mayor addressed the accusations, hoping it would end the questions and not damage his pursuit of a second term. He is not accused of any wrongdoing by the Manhattan DA.
Ingrid is like a sister to me. I love Ingrid.
But on Monday, while the mayor tried to resuscitate his campaign at a rally with small businesses, the queries continued.
I welcome support of all New Yorkers.
Can you clarify whether or not she's a volunteer
Next
with your
question,
campaign
Tom.
still? Can you clarify whether or not she's a volunteer with your campaign?
Marsha?
At issue, whether Ingrid Lewis-Martin is still volunteering for the mayor's re-election efforts. And Mr. Mayor, why can't you just answer the question?
Listen. Last week, I spoke about the case. That's a wrap.
Yeah, but
I got a campaign to run. I don't have speak to her attorney. Speak to her. That's a wrap. It's over.
But it's your campaign. Why can't you just say whether or not she's a volunteer?
I took my time out, so I didn't do this. You're a for-profit business. Your business is to make profits. So don't say I have to answer questions. I did. I answered your question last week, and I'm not going into that anymore. Let our lawyer, and she could talk about that.
New York One reached out to Ingrid Lewis-Martin for a response. We have not heard back.
We were able to get Ingrid Lewis-Martin's attorney on the phone this evening, and he said he was not clear whether or not she would continue to volunteer for the Eric Adams campaign. And we should note the distinction here, the way that Mayor Eric Adams is treating Lewis-Martin is very different than the way he treated another former staffer whose name is Winnie Greco. She was tied up in a different controversy last week, handing some cash to a reporter in a bag of chips that kind of went viral. It did go viral. But immediately after that moment, then the Adams campaign said Winnie Greco is suspended from all volunteer activity related to the Eric Adams campaign, but they're not taking that same kind of approach with Ingrid Lewis-Martin.
Right. I mean, there was a very clear distinction in the way that they responded to. I thought it was very strongly worded to say that Winnie Greco was being suspended when she was just a volunteer, and a totally different approach with Ingrid Lewis-Martin. But I mean, Ingrid Lewis-Martin, she's not just showing up at campaign events, she was helping organize other volunteers on the campaign, right?
Yeah, but from our understanding, she was still in a volunteer capacity. She wasn't getting paid or isn't getting paid by the Eric Adams campaign, but they're just not telling us whether or not she's still going to be doing those organizing efforts. I mean, this is a relationship, Ingrid Lewis-Martin and Eric Adams, that goes back decades. Ingrid Lewis-Martin's husband was a partner and worked with Eric Adams in the NYPD. So we're talking about, what, the 90s, essentially? Then Ingrid Lewis-Martin worked for him in the state senate, in the borough president's office. I mean, this is someone who I like to call as his right-hand woman. I mean, she was always at his side. So clearly, he had these remarks on Friday. He took questions from the press then, addressing the issues. But at no point during that press conference did he say, I'm concerned about the allegations. He basically said, let due process happen. She's entitled to due process. These are part of her constitutional rights. He never said, I have an issue with corruption in my administration, and I'm going to root it out.
Right. All right, Courtney Gross, thank you for that report. It is time now for a break. Coming up, we'll have more on the race for mayor as Zohran Mamdani vows to revive a proposed redesign for McGinnis Boulevard in Greenpoint that was sidelined by the Adams administration. We'll bring you the details next, and later, I'll be joined by a leading housing advocate to talk about affordable housing in the city and ballot proposals that could expedite the public review process. Stay with us. We're back in a minute.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's developing news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Some morning sunshine possible, clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One, weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum customers.
What do we have going on here?
Well, I heard you guys talking about online threats, so I built an internet for it.
We have Spectrum, so our internet blocks threats automatically.
Oh.
But the internet is full of trolls, so you keep a lookout.
On it.
If it's connected, it's protected. Spectrum Internet with advanced Wi-Fi.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You've done with the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Exclusively on Spectrum.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Inside City Hall, reminding New Yorkers of the new corruption allegations against two of Mayor Adams' associates. Democratic mayoral nominee Zohran Mamdani campaigned at McGinnis Boulevard in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, site of a bike safety project that Adams' longtime senior advisor Ingrid Lewis-Martin allegedly took bribes to alter on behalf of a powerful area family. Our State House reporter Bernadette Hogan joins me now to explain. Good evening, Bernadette.
Good evening, Bobby. Monday morning, and Zohran Mamdani took reporters to the alleged scene of the crime, or the location where Ingrid Lewis-Martin, when she was a top aide in the Adams administration, allegedly was influenced by a powerful family seeking to kill a massive redesign of McGinnis Boulevard.
Many ways in which this neighborhood and this highway put working people's lives in danger were those furthest from the political power.
Standing on the corner of Collier Avenue and McGinnis Boulevard,
too many Greenpoint residents have been killed on this asphalt.
Democratic mayoral nominee Zohran Mamdani was reminding New Yorkers that alleged corruption under Mayor Eric Adams is the reason behind the current bike lane design, one that advocates argue continues to put bikers at risk.
After 2 years of community input, the whole plan was thrown in the garbage.
Last week's indictment from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office alleges Adams's former senior advisor and friend, Ingrid Lewis-Martin, helped kill a plan that would have transformed McGinnis Boulevard into a single lane for drivers on either side, surrounded by bike lanes, after she was bribed by the powerful Argento family, also owners of Broadway stages. Lewis-Martin has pleaded not guilty to the charges.
What we've seen in these charges, it begs the question of what the safety of New Yorkers is worth. Is it not worth more than $12,500 and a cameo in a TV show?
She allegedly accepted cash, catering at Gracie Mansion, and a brief role in Hulu's Godfather of Harlem show. Now, Mamdani promises he will complete the original plan and also finish other stalled street projects, like the Fordham Road and Tremont Avenue busway redesign in the Bronx.
I know I'm not arguing with DOT. I'm arguing with Mayor Adams.
Making the case as to why he should replace Mayor Adams, Mamdani also highlighted the conduct of another former aide, Winnie Greco.
None of us would have entertained as possible or plausible that cash would be stuffed in an envelope within a bag of chips given to a reporter.
Although Greco has not been charged, the incident was referred to the City Department of Investigations.
The mayor has had countless opportunities to rid his administration of those who have been alleged time and again to engage in corruption. And yet at seemingly every opportunity, he chooses to keep them close. And that says something about the style of leadership that he wants to practice in this city.
So Zoran Mamdani right there is continuing to use these new indictments, Bobby, to bring up the past alleged misdeeds of those in the Adams administration who actually, Adams got an order from Governor Kathy Hochul to clean house and fire those aides. So what these indictments are doing, although they are from former aides, no longer in the administration, although at least one of them was a campaign aide up until recently, unclear whether or not Ingrid Lewis-Martin is still a campaign aide. It just continues to paint this cloud of corruption around City Hall.
And, you know, obviously Zoran Mamdani is trying to draw attention to the alleged corruption. But as far as the bike lane itself and these street safety improvements, a lot of them went into place, right? It's not as though the entire plan got completely quashed, right?
This is a plan that advocates have been asking for decades. And under the Adams administration, this redesign did end up happening, but it was curtailed. So at first, Bobby, it was approved to have a single lane on either side and bike lanes surrounding throughout the entirety of McGinnis Boulevard up until you hit the Pulaski Bridge. Now what's happening is at Collier Avenue and McGinnis, so Collier's about 10 blocks or a little over until you hit Pulaski, it becomes again a 2-lane artery. Mamdani says he will go back to the original plan to make it a single lane, as he and advocates think that it will greatly reduce speed and then also increase safety for riders.
All right, Bernadette Hogan, thank you for that report. Meanwhile, the self-driving car company Waymo will be testing its cars in parts of Manhattan and downtown Brooklyn. 8 vehicles will begin testing, but a human driver must be behind the wheel at all times. The city says the study will check how the autonomous vehicles navigate the city's busy streets, but a group of livery drivers are worried they could put them out of a job. Nia Clark has that story.
And anyone supporting driverless vehicles is an enemy of the transportation industry in New York City.
Members of the New York State Federation of Taxi Drivers, along with many taxi and livery cab drivers, are not happy that the city is allowing driverless cars to be tested on city streets.
Yeah, that would take our job away.
They take the jobs and like when I don't like this.
Standing outside of Governor Kathy Hochul's Midtown office Monday, the Federation's president says the prospect of self-driving cars in the city could jeopardize the jobs of 200,000 taxi drivers. He's demanding Governor Kathy Hochul and Mayor Eric Adams ban them from the city.
All the car companies are concerned. They're worried. The yellow medallions have been decimated by the rideshare companies. Now, everyone wants to decimate what currently exists.
The protest comes after the Adams administration granted autonomous vehicle company Waymo a permit to test self-driving vehicles in parts of Manhattan and downtown Brooklyn, with a driver behind the wheel supervising at all times. Mayor Eric Adams says his is a tech-friendly administration, and Waymo's permit is just for testing driverless cars. It's still illegal to operate them as a business here. But Chanel Hernandez believes this is a prelude to allowing driverless cars to operate on city streets. He says that would destroy his black car transportation company, which he started a few years after closing a previous car company due to competition from ride sharing.
My concern is that it's going to put our drivers out of business, and many of our companies out of business. We already have a lot of saturation in this industry for many years now with rideshare companies coming in.
Opponents also say driverless vehicles pose safety risks.
Self-driving taxi in Congestion, New York. So much people, so much traffic. It doesn't make sense.
You don't have nobody sitting behind the wheel. Accident gonna happen. Somebody gonna lose their life.
It's too unpredictable in Manhattan. Maybe in the suburbs, but not in Manhattan.
Though some would-be passengers like the idea.
I've taken them in San Francisco. They're awesome. You don't have to worry about interacting with another person, and they never mess up.
A spokesperson for Governor Hochul tells us, quote, public safety, including street safety, is a top priority for Governor Hochul. State law establishes clear procedures for permitting of autonomous vehicle testing with the highest safety standards applied. New York State will continue to work with New York City officials to ensure the safety of any testing program. In a separate statement, a Waymo spokesperson tells New York One, quote, we serve hundreds of thousands of trips every week in 5 major cities across the U.S. and strive to be good neighbors in the cities we operate. We remain committed to listening to and working with the New York community to complement their transportation ecosystem, adding more access and safety to roads. A spokesperson for Mayor Eric Adams says the mayor will always stand with the taxi industry while the city also attempts to modernize transportation here. City Hall also says the permit Waymo has allows the company to test up to 8 autonomous vehicles in Manhattan and downtown Brooklyn until late September of this year. Reporting from Manhattan, Nia Clark, inside City Hall.
It is time now for a break. Coming up, after being wrongfully deported and then returned to the U.S., Kilmar Abrego Garcia has been detained by ICE once again and is facing deportation by the Trump administration. We will bring you all the latest details. Stay with us.
This election year is all about New York City. There are 51 council seats up for grabs, races for our next city comptroller and the next public advocate.
Plus, an unprecedented race for mayor. That puts the power in your hands to decide who will run our city.
Our team of political experts will be covering every angle of this election to keep you informed on how it could affect you, so you can feel confident with your decision at the polls.
Stay with Spectrum News New York 1 for Decision 2025, exclusively on Spectrum.
We chose Spectrum Business because every second matters in our operation. We need a network that can move as quickly as we need to.
We are a takeout restaurant, half our business is online. So we needed something dependable, reliable, with great service.
The state-of-the-art facility depends on a state-of-the-art network to support classroom engagement.
Join the network made for business with solutions made for every size. Visit spectrum.com/made for business to get started.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time. And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York One to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood. Because our city never stops moving.
3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories. But first,
stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Kilmar Abrego Garcia will remain in the United States for now as a federal judge weighs a new challenge to his deportation. The Department of Homeland Security said earlier today it's processing the Maryland man for deportation to Uganda following a mandatory check-in at an ICE facility in Baltimore. Karina Capabianca of our Washington, D.C. bureau has the details in this report.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
Outside of an ICE facility in Baltimore, Kilmar Abrego Garcia's supporters called for him to be set free. Before surrendering himself to ICE for a mandatory check-in, he thanked the crowd alongside his wife and lawyer.
Ustedes que marcharon, levantaron sus voces y oraron y nunca dejaron de creer y luchar por mi libertad.
This is why I want to thank each and every one of you who marched, lift your voices, never stopped praying, and continued to fight in my name.
Abrego Garcia, who now lives in Maryland, was wrongfully deported to El Salvador, his native country, back in March due to an administrative error. A federal judge ultimately ruled that it was a wrongful deportation and he was sent back to the U.S., but he was then charged with human smuggling. The Trump administration also alleges he is an MS-13 gang member, something he denies.
He's currently charged with human smuggling, including children. The guy needs to be in prison.
Abrego Garcia's lawyer says there was no need for him to be taken into ICE detention and called the smuggling charges vindictive.
He was already on electronic monitoring from the U.S. Marshal Service and basically on house arrest.
Abrego Garcia's legal team Monday urged a judge to slow down his removal process so he has a chance to challenge his potential deportation. A federal judge extended a temporary hold on Abrego Garcia's removal from the country as his lawyers challenge his deportation to Uganda. She writes the government would be, quote, absolutely forbidden to remove him now. His lawyer says he's being held at a detention facility in Virginia. In Washington, Karina Capabianca, Spectrum News.
It is time now for a break. Coming up, I'll be joined by Rachel Frey of the New York Housing Conference to talk about 3 proposals on the November ballot that will make it easier to build more housing in the city. Stay with us. We are back in a minute.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Bergman.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing you for tomorrow. Right here on the Rush Hour. Weekdays from 4 to 7 p.m.
Are you ready for the ultimate entertainment experience? Spectrum is bringing together the streaming apps you love. Plus, live TV for sports, entertainment, and news. All in one place, across your devices. So no matter when or where you are, it's all here. Spectrum.
I'm Chris Jakovic. I served in the United States Air Force, and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is, my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately, in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakovic, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall, where we are keeping our focus on the upcoming November election. Voters will not only be choosing their next mayor, they'll also be deciding on several ballot measures. The city's Charter Revision Commission, appointed by Mayor Adams, created 5 ballot proposals, with 3 of them focused on the city's land use process. One would fast-track the approval process for affordable housing projects in the 12 community districts that produce the least of it. Another would create an affordable housing appeals board that would have the power to overturn the city council on affordable housing decisions. Joining me now to talk more about all of this is Rachel Frey. She is the executive director of the New York Housing Conference. Welcome back to the program. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Bobby.
So we're now 10 weeks out, just about 10 weeks out from Election Day. I have a feeling most New Yorkers have not even heard about all of these ballot questions, but I suspect the New York Housing Conference has a lot to say about these 3 in particular. which are all very housing focused, right?
Absolutely. So we've been following the Charter Reform Commission really closely all year. We've testified several times, and they had public hearings in every borough. And what they came up with were really important and critical changes to approvals for how we build housing in New York City. So I think this is a really exciting opportunity for voters in November. They get to say yes to some really important changes that can allow us to build affordable housing faster in New York City.
So going through a few of them, there's 3 questions, right? The first one has to do with fast-tracking affordable housing projects. And like I mentioned, it would actually fast-track them in districts that have produced the least of it, right? So this is is this like a reaction to the NIMBYism, the not in my backyard attitude that we've seen in some corners of the city, where you can sort of counteract that?
Yeah, so at New York Housing Conference, we've been tracking production of affordable housing by community district for several years. And, you know, the data shows where we're building and where we're not. So the top 10 community districts in New York produce, in the last 11 years, have produced more than half the affordable housing in all of New York City. And, you know, the bottom 12 are not doing their share. So the City Council passed a fair housing framework a couple of years ago, and this is really a way to put teeth on that process. But I think the other important part of the fast track is that 100% affordable housing projects financed by the City of New York can go through a new lane, a fast track through the Board of Standards and Appeal. And that can really cut down all of the time we're waiting for the shovels to get in the ground when we're looking for approvals on affordable housing.
All right, another question would create an expedited review process for smaller, more modest zoning changes, right? What would be an example of something that would get fast-tracked under this one?
That's right. And the Charter Commission did some research on this, and what they saw was all of the proposals in ULURP, the Uniform Land Use Approval Process, or I've said it wrong, they're all for really big changes, right? A big leap in adding more residential zoning capacity. That's because the process to request this and go through the approval costs a lot of money, it takes a lot of time. And so what they wanted to do was create this, you know, kind of fast lane for small changes and just encouraging building owners to also request those small changes. So if your project needs an environmental review and it's really a significant change, it's not going to get this fast track lane. But, you know, if you want to go up to 45 feet for your building height, that might qualify.
Okay, and the big issue that we always hear about when it comes to land use approval process is member deference, right? This is the practice and tradition in the City Council where basically the local council member can effectively veto any major housing project in their district. Now we're saying basically that doesn't have to be the case anymore, and there will be this new Affordable Housing Appeals Board. This is question 3 on the ballot.
That's right. So, you know, we have seen member deference sometimes be used to the good, negotiate more affordable housing in a project, which has been great. But we've also seen projects never see the light of day. Developers go to a council member, they say, don't even propose it, don't look at that site, or they say, yeah, I'm interested, but let's wait until after my election, sit on that project for 2 years. So they have a lot of control in this process. And I think what this appeals board does is it really brings in this citywide perspective, right? It's not just about someone's backyard where the land use is happening. It's that we have a housing shortage across New York City, and we really need to just change our tools that we have for approving housing so that we're taking that perspective in. So I think this appeals board is unlikely to be used that often, but I think it does encourage members to come to the table to say yes when they can to housing being proposed in their districts.
It seems like the underlying idea here is that we just need to build more housing faster, and the way that the city process runs right now, it just doesn't allow for that, right? Is that the idea?
That's right, and I think that's why this is really exciting that it's on the ballot in November, because this is one time where voters can actually make a difference and, you know, approve these measures, change the rules that we have. And I really am feeling kind of optimistic about where we are in terms of tackling our a housing shortage. We had Albany pass new tax incentives last year, both for rental housing and converting offices to housing, which is great for adding new supply. We also had the city council pass the City of Yes, so adding a little bit more residential zoning in each neighborhood. And now we have voters in the city of New York who can change the process, the approval process, make it easier, make it faster, and prioritize affordable housing.
Let me ask you about housing in the mayor's race. It has really been front and center. I mean, both because of Zohran Mamdani wanting to freeze the rent, and then more recently, we saw Andrew Cuomo saying that Zohran Mamdani should give up his rent-stabilized apartment in Queens because he makes too much money as a state assemblyman. I wonder what you make of all this, and I guess in particular, I mean, is it a valid policy discussion whether rent-stabilized housing should have some kind of means testing where you should be limited to a certain income range?
So I don't think it's very practical that we could really get there, right? We have 1 million rent-stabilized households in New York. We have a 1.4 vacancy rate citywide, right? There's not room for people to move around. You know, and I think when you think of candidate Mamdani and his apartment in Queens, it's almost 1 in 5 apartments in Queens are rent stabilized. So, you know, it's not, these apartments are not income restricted right now, right? It's whoever is lucky enough to be able to rent them and stay in them and benefit from slower increases in rents than the market. But I think the bottom line here is we need to add more housing because, you know, I think the reason that comment from Cuomo struck such a nerve is that New Yorkers are paying too much of their rent on housing. They all want a deal. They want to, right? Everybody wants a deal for their rent. And I think that's really why it struck a nerve and why we need to think about what are the solutions to build more housing in New York City. That's the only way we're going to bring the rents down for everyone.
And lastly, City of Yes passed earlier this year. This has been, I mean, sort of the signature achievement for the Adams administration in terms of the ability to build more housing. Have we been able to see the impact yet, or is this really going to be a slow-moving process in terms of reforming the zoning changes?
So the changes are in place, and you know, we never expected results overnight. It's really a new set of rules to build more housing over the next decade. So, you know, paired with potential changes for the charter, which voters can say yes to in November, and plus these new tax incentives from Albany, I really think that we are, you know, have the tools that we need in place to add more supply. And I think also in this mayoral race, every candidate is prioritizing adding affordable housing supply and increasing investment. So while we still have many challenges and a lot of headwinds ahead, I do think New York City right now has many of the tools lined up to really face this challenge head on. And if voters pass these charter reform proposals as well, we're really going to be able to add new housing more quickly, and a lot of that will be affordable.
I suspect you'll be out advocating for people to get on board between now and November. But for now, Rachel Fee, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much.
All right, it is time now for a break. Coming up, I will turn back to the race for mayor after a busy weekend on the campaign trail when I'm joined by 2 top political consultants. Stay with us. We're back in a minute.
If it's the theater you love, then we've got just the ticket. On Stage is your all-access pass to Broadway, off-Broadway, and the best live entertainment in the city. The interviews and backstage exclusives. All that's made On Stage the go-to source for entertainment for over 20 years. Join us every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m. for On Stage. Also available on the Spectrum News app. I'll see you at the theater, exclusively on Spectrum.
I'm kind of a deal hunter. I like to make sure we got the best deal.
We used a Spectrum savings calculator before. I learned that since we're existing Spectrum Internet customers, we get a mobile line for a year.
Having a line for a year would be amazing. I looked at you and I said, how is the savings so substantial?
Switch and save with one mobile line included with your internet service. Backed by the Spectrum commitment to keep you connected.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it? I won't.
My father was a New York City firefighter. My mission, like his, is to serve New Yorkers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. As we mentioned, reporters today questioned Mayor Adams over the role his longtime ally Ingrid Lewis-Martin still holds in his re-election campaign, but he refused to answer. Joining me now to talk more about this are two members of this week's Consultants Corner and Trip Yang. Thank you both for being here. So let's talk about the mayor's race. The bombshell news last week was that Ingrid Lewis-Martin was being indicted on a variety of alleged pay-to-play schemes. I'm having a hard time deciphering what impact this has on the mayor's race. I mean, for one thing, we know the mayor is not quitting the race. And to the extent he still has support, I mean, if somebody is stuck with Eric Adams this long, I can't imagine that these latest indictments are going to tip the scales. Right?
Yeah, I think the mayor is polling in the single digits right now. I don't think these help him, these recent reports help him. But to me, the bigger sort of interesting piece of this is that there has been such a deluge of these stories that this recent allegation, even though it is sort of incredible, hasn't really made a dent in this primary or in the news cycle. I think people are used to these types of allegations coming out and are used to being indicted.
I tried to get in touch with two of the mayor's supporters before I came on this program, but neither of them actually wanted to pick up the phone. So I don't know how much this actually affects the mayor's race. Look, Eric Adams, he was non-serious before this. He remains non-serious. This is just, quite frankly, it damages his legacy a little bit more. A culture, a cloud of corruption with him and his inner circle. This further enhances that. And look, to be in all seriousness, there's a better chance of the New York Jets winning the Super Bowl this season than Eric Adams winning re-election.
And I think to your point that this damages his reputation, it's really interesting to me that he's deciding to stick with this. He's polling it forth consistently. Obviously, there are some moneyed backers that kind of want to see him see it through, but he has good things to point to. He has a safer city today. He's scored some big wins, and yet this is going to be his legacy.
And he's out there having rallies. I mean, he had one over the weekend. He had one today on the City Hall steps. So, I mean, he seems convinced that he can dig himself out of this hole. I mean, what advice would you give Eric Adams at this point if you were advising him?
I would tell him that this isn't his race and that he should leave on as good of terms as he possibly can, and that running this election is only bringing more attention to the real problems in his administration.
I will give credit to the Adams administration and that some of the bureaucrats serving in pretty senior roles, the police commissioner, Dan Garanik on city planning, they and their staffs have done some really tremendous work and have actually provided some level of confidence and credibility in how this massive city and this massive city bureaucracy functions during these really uncertain times. So I would say, like, some of the appointees Eric Adams actually got right. He himself in his political circle, you know, it's mistake after mistake.
So, you know, whatever the electoral impact on Eric Adams, we know that his opponents are responding to all this stuff, right? And we saw Zohran Mamdani today out on McGinnis Boulevard in Greenpoint, which of course is where there was this debate over the bike lanes and the street safety improvements that Ingrid Lewis-Martin allegedly helped to quash. Right. So, I mean, I guess that was sort of a gimme for Mamdani to go out and do this.
It's a gimme. It's a reason for people to be talking about Zohran in ways that show just how sort of clean his record is, and it's a way for him to sort of control the narrative and not be talking about things that maybe he doesn't want to be talking about in this moment. So it's a gimme. It's easy press.
This scavenger hunt that Zoran and his campaign put together yesterday, it really just illustrates how not only how charismatic he is, but also why so many New Yorkers voted for him. You don't have to be young, progressive, socialist, or fit into these labels to vote for Zoran Mamdani in the primary or in the upcoming general election. This scavenger hunt was pretty wholesome. You know, if I was in town, I probably would have participated too. If I had kids, I would have dragged them all there. This just seemed really fun. He's affable. It just fits his persona and his energy so well. Usually mayors get a honeymoon of about a year or so when they take office. Zoran Mamdani might have a longer honeymoon than most mayors.
I had a very different reaction to the scavenger hunt, which is whenever I see something, I'm a cynic, I'm a political operative, I'm like, what's his end game here? Why is he doing this? And for me, I really think, you know, Zoran won his primary so sort of dominantly in part because he peaked at the right time. And it's really hard to sustain that momentum and keep people knocking on doors and keep your volunteers out and about. And I think this was a way for him to re-excite and re-engage his base and make sure they remember, okay, you did this once, now you got to go out and do it again.
I mean, it's out of the box, right? I mean, we're seeing some of the video now. On its face, when I first heard about a scavenger hunt, I mean, it seemed like sort of juvenile or something, but it's hard to doubt the campaign at this point when they have been so effective in engaging people and engaging young voters in particular. You see the lines where there's hundreds of people waiting.
Zoran Mamdani during the primary brought out 40,000 new New Yorkers who voted for the first time in a Democratic primary. You don't get that without a lot of organic, real energy, excitement. You know, Zoran Mamdani has more charisma than almost anyone since Barack Obama in the Democratic Party. You know, this is an illustration of that. And look, Haley's not wrong in terms of earlier points. It helps that he is running against a collection of three of the most flawed political candidates that you can run against: Andrew Cuomo, Eric Adams, and Curtis Sliwa. So I think Zoran's going to win by a pretty good margin in November.
And worth mentioning, one of the prizes, I believe, as I understood it, was a bag of sour cream and onion chips, which was, of course, a nod.
Without cash in it.
Without cash. And last week, of course, we all know the backstory here. There was a bag of chips handed to a reporter with $300 cash in it. Again, I mean, this is just, I mean, it's almost so farcical that it's hard to see it damaging the Adams campaign because it was so cartoonish.
Yeah, I really don't think this is like a form of negative campaigning. I really do think this is a form of organizing and making people feel that they belong to something. And I really think that's sort of been the beauty of turning out 40,000 new voters. And what Zoran has been able to build is he's taken this sort of online community and given them a thing in real life to build around. And I think a lot of campaigns around the country could learn a lot from that tactic.
Yeah, authenticity is really important. Zoran is 33, turning 34, you know, very witty, right? So this just, a lot of young people, a lot of online people, they really like the humor in this, right? So keep Zoran, right? Let the candidate be the candidate.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. I will have much more to talk about with these consultants when we return. Stay with us.
As native New Yorkers, the weekend team at New York One is here to be a voice for your community.
Our focus is to uphold the journalistic principles our network was built on.
Using our years of local reporting experience to take on important issues across the 5 boroughs. Morning, noon, or night, it's in-depth coverage that prepares you for the week ahead.
Spectrum News New York One, weekends, starting Saturdays at 7 a.m.
Available on all your devices exclusively on Spectrum.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day with in-depth coverage of the day's developing news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Some morning sunshine possible, clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One, weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum customers.
She doesn't come from money, and she's not just our governor. She's a mom from Buffalo, and it doesn't get much tougher than that.
Want to know what I really think? It's bullshit. These times call for fighting fire with fire. We're New Yorkers. We fight back. What the hell is happening in this country? If Tom Homan comes to
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. I'm once again joined by my Consultants Corner, Democratic consultants Haley Scott and Trip Yang, and that was the first digital ad, I believe, of the gubernatorial campaign put out by Kathy Hochul. And Haley, I'll start with you. She's really leaning into the Rambo image, it seems.
Yeah, she's a fighter. It's a tough ad. I like it a lot. I think, you know, the governor takes seriously the fact that she underperformed in 2022. This is her first real race since then, and I think she's not taking anything for granted. And having Trump as a boogeyman and someone to really fight and run against in this moment, I think is really sort of helpful for her, and I think it's a great ad.
Governor Hochul has really risen to the occasion under Donald Trump. When Trump is in office, Democratic base voters, they really want to see some fight, some energy from their Democratic leaders. They don't want to see a quote-unquote strongly worded letter all the time, right? So this is excellent. This is Kathy Hochul stepping into her role as a national Democratic leader. Look, she gets a lot of credit. Her leader, Jeffries, Senator Gillibrand, for last November winning 4 out of 5 closely contested congressional races. So now that Trump is in office, Democrats really want to see leaders like the governor really fight. She's taken the fight to Trump with redistricting, and this campaign commercial, look, it's got an edge to it. I'm a big fan.
It's interesting, though, the dynamics, because it wasn't that long ago we were talking about Kathy Hochul trying to moderate, right? Because it seemed like everybody was trying to pivot back to the center. I mean, even on things like bail reform that she tried, you know, she's trying to roll back to some degree. But now it's like the fighting posture versus Trump seems to be what she's going after to try to appeal to a statewide electorate. I mean, because we're talking about a statewide race next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think Trump has crossed so many lines and people are so genuinely freaked out, and not just sort of the liberal progressive resistance Democrats. Everyday people are scared, and she, I think, has stepped into this role, and this isn't in this moment of sort of the threat that is Donald Trump to so many things. This isn't really about what type of Democrat are you moderate, are you progressive? This is about who's really taking the fight to that.
Yeah, when President Biden was in office and Democrats controlled the federal government, there was more of a, well, let's have fights over ideology within the Democratic Party, quote unquote, progressives versus moderates, even though I think some of that's a little oversimplified sometimes. When Donald Trump's in office, it doesn't really matter as much about your ideological label. Voters, they just want to see you fight. And whether it's Bernie Sanders, Ocasio-Cortez going on the fight the oligarchy tour, or it's Cory Booker doing a marathon, filibuster, or it's Leader Jeffries, rallying the Democratic members of Congress opposing Donald Trump. Voters want to see some type of action, right? There's more than one way to do it.
And then the backdrop to this is that even though she says she hasn't made a decision yet, it seems a lot like Elise Stefanik, the upstate Republican congresswoman, is going to be the Republican nominee next year in the governor's race. And she is pretty much as MAGA as they come, right? So we're setting up, two very different types of candidates in next year's race.
Which I think is exactly the dynamics that the governor wants in this race. I think it gets complicated for some of the swing seat House members, like on Long Island and in the Hudson Valley, places where Donald Trump either won or came very close. But statewide, if this is going to become a proxy war between Trump and Democrats, I think that's exactly the turf Kathy Hochul wants to be fighting on.
Kathy Hochul naturally has an advantage as an incumbent governor in a state that has 2 times as many registered Democrats than Republicans. However, a Republican's best hope is really someone on their side who could, who has proven that they could win in a district that leans Democrat, right? So someone like Michael Lawler probably would have been the best Republican nominee. But look, Elise Stefanik is probably Trump 2.0 minus some of Trump's charisma. So I would say Governor Hochul has the advantage here.
Let me ask you guys about Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader who is meeting, apparently meeting again with Zohran Mamdani this week. I mean, we keep talking about how these top Democrats, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, Kathy Hochul, have not yet fully endorsed Zohran Mamdani. So all eyes again are on Hakeem Jeffries. I mean, I wonder if we in the media are making too much of this. Like, does anyone care if Hakeem Jeffries has endorsed Zohran Mamdani or not?
I think a lot of people online care, but I think what New Yorkers have to remember is Hakeem Jeffries ultimately has one job, and we're so lucky that the leader is a New Yorker, but ultimately he has a national role. He's the leader of House Democrats. His job is to flip the House. And I, for one, as a Democrat, am grateful that he's singularly focused on that right now and doing everything he can to fight these redistricting battles and, you know, make sure House Democrats are reading from the same sheet of music. And his job isn't to play referee on blue cities or blue districts and who's winning in those races.
I think if the November election was a little bit closer, then, you know, this is a very valid question. However, it looks like Mamdani's going to win in pretty much a landslide. And so what we have to acknowledge here is that Hakeem Jeffries, as a Brooklynite, he has come to Mamdani's defense against Donald Trump's xenophobic, Islamophobic attacks. We have to acknowledge that. He's also relentlessly praised Zohran's strengths, such as his discipline on affordability, talking about that crucial issue. And so we have to remember that as well. Is he going to endorse or not going to endorse? I don't really think it matters because Zohran Mamdani is going to win by double digits.
Yeah. All right, guys, we are going to leave it there. Haley Scott Trippiang, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And that is going to do it for tonight's show. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great evening. We will see you the next time on Inside City Hall.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning.
You done with the sports section?
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Exclusively on Spectrum.
We chose Spectrum Business because every second matters in our operation. We need a network that can move as quickly as we need to.
We've built some clientele that are not local, and live streaming is the way we connect.
We are a takeout restaurant. You order your food online, half our business is online. So we needed something dependable, reliable, with great service.
The state-of-the-art facility depends upon having a state-of-the-art network to support classroom engagement.
When we had our grand opening, we needed to be able to operate from day one with ease.
Join the network made for business with solutions made for every size. Visit spectrum.com/made-for-business to get started.
This election